Hey guys, it's Quickie Baby and welcome back to another quick tank review. This time we're looking at the STA one. This is the Tier 8 Japanese medium tank. And if you're looking for a great all-rounder that kind of forgoes a little bit of the armor protection that it has to gain a little bit extra capabilities with regards to its firepower, then this might be the Tier 8 medium tank for you. And if you have no interest in this Tier 8 Japanese medium tank, then stay tuned anyway and I'll tell you how to take it out effectively on the battlefield. So for a lot of people, the STA one is a great pleasure because it comes after the Chi-Ri. And if you were worried that the Tier 8 Japanese medium tank might be like the Chi-Ri, well, then you're not going to be disappointed. It is completely different. It's a lot lighter with a slightly more powerful Mitsubishi engine, meaning that it really feels like a true medium tank again. It does have the mobility of a medium tank, whereas the Chi-Ri kind of felt like a heavy support tank at Tier 7. So just to quickly run over the STA 1 stats, it's got 1,450 hit points, which is very standard. It weighs just shy of 35 tons, making it quite light for a Tier 8 medium tank. And considering this, its engine power of 570 is rather impressive. The speed limit of this tank is an okay 45 kilometers an hour, but it does have an impressive traverse speed of 44 degrees a second. Now just quickly, the hull armor on this tank is garbage. It's 45 at the front, 35 at the side, and 25 at the rear, while the turret is 70 at the front, 60 on the side, and 35 at the rear. Let's take a quick look into WOT Tank Viewer to look at this in more detail. So here's our STA one. And here's the armor profile with a key at the bottom for you. Now remember that the colors are redistributed between the top armor thickness, which is 70, and the bottom armor thickness, which is 0. So this orange here is actually only 45 millimeters thick. Now the angling is really good, so if you can angle your armor and hopefully ricochet off your upper plate, then you do stand a chance to bounce. You'll remember an example such as this from, I think, the second Good Guys video that I did, or I think it was Z-Man managed to cover an E3 using the upper plate on his STA1. Or he could have been driving a Type 61 actually, thinking about that. But the point is still the same. As this is 45 millimeters thick, if it's flat, you've got practically no chance to bounce unless the enemies are aiming up at you at some ridiculous angle, which, as I'll get onto later, is kind of possible in the STA1 as the gun depression is rather impressive. If we look at the sides of the tank, we can see it is only 35 millimeters thick. So if you want to absorb anything, you're going to have to hope that your chassis takes the punishment. If you're aiming at the sides of an STA1, there are gaps in between the tracks which you can shoot to effectively take advantage of that tank only having 35 millimeters of armor. As we can see here, nice clean shots in the side. It's very hard to not damage an STA1. Interestingly, this little bit up here is even thinner. It's only 30 millimeters thick, but it is slightly angled, so you've got to watch out for that. At the back of the tank, it is a paltry 20 millimeters, so if you do have HE ammo, even in the lowest of caliber guns, you will be able to penetrate the STA1 and completely wreck it. Now with regards to the turret armor, we can see there is a 70 millimeter patch on the lower part of the front, whereas the part above the gun manlet is 40 millimeters thick, and the hatches on top and this little part here are 60 millimeters. So if you're wanting to shoot an STA1, this part here is a very viable option to do so, as well as trying to shoot the rim of this MG on top of the tank. Don't be confused, however, these parts will not be penetrating. As we can see, they're not modeled on the hitbox, and thank goodness that they're not. Looking at the side of the turrets, it's 60 millimeters here and 40 all the way down the side. And if we just look at this without the paneling, just look at the side of this STA1 turret. It's one of the biggest weaknesses of the tank is that its side profile is gigantic. You really need to do everything that you can to try and not allow yourself to be shot in the side in the STA1. As it is very unlikely that you're going to avoid taking damage. We can see that the back of the tank on the top is a gigantic artillery target, which is only 12 millimeters thick. And generally, if you get hit by artillery in the STA1, it is going to do a huge amount of damage to you. Really, when you're driving this vehicle, there's only one part of the tank that you want to be shot in, and that is the gun mantlet. All of this part here is 124 millimeters thick, and the part at the top is 90. And behind that is another patch of 40 millimeter thick armor, as we can see here. Behind the shield, however, there is absolutely no protection. It is quite a large rectangle. As this is a tier 8 tank, that means that basically if most tanks hit you flush in the mantlet, then it's quite likely that it's going to be able to go through. However, if they hit you at a funny angle and it has to go through both parts of the spaced armor, then it's you do have a chance. Realistically, this is the only part of the armor that you're going to be able to actually bounce anything with, and if you're shooting at an STA1, you should avoid shooting at the Mandler at all costs. So if you were very disappointed by the armor profile of this tank, then the gun definitely more than makes up for it. This is a very competitive 90mm for a tier 8 tank. It fires 8 rounds a minute, which is very decent, with 240 alpha damage. Now the standard AP rounds on this tank have a very healthy 218mm of penetration, and interestingly it fires heat as premium, which has 275 if you need to engage very thickly armored targets. Now the accuracy on this tank is 0.36 and the aim time is 2.3, which is pretty darn good really. Just to give you an idea of how this gun compares to the tank's closest rivals, let's take a look on Tank Compare. So here we have the STA1 on the left, the Pershing in the middle, the American Tier 8 medium tank, and the Centurion Mark 1, the Tier 8 British medium tank. So the health is almost identical, signal range almost identical. The speed limit, obviously the Centurion is slightly slower, with the STA1 being in the middle and the M26 having the advantage. They all go at the same speed limit backwards. The STA1 is the lightest of the tanks, which means that it does get slightly better horsepower to ton ratio than the Pershing and almost identical to the Centurion. Obviously we highlighted that the armor on the STA1 is simply garbage compared to the other two tanks, and its ground resistance is slightly better than the Pershing's on hard and medium terrain, but slightly worse on soft, and quite a bit worse than the Centurion on soft. Now, as this is a diesel engine, its chance to be set on fire is significantly lower than the other two tanks. And that's quite refreshing for a Japanese vehicle, as the Chiri's Kawasaki engine had 20% chance to get set on fire, and it went up like a tinderbox. The STA1's got 10 meters less view range than those two tanks, but it has quite significantly better turret traverse, at least compared to the Centurion 1. And that's rather useful for quickly re-engaging your targets. Now the alpha damage is the same as the Pershing and 10 better than the Centurion. And this is really coming up here, one of the key aspects of the STA1, the 218mm of penetration with its standard rounds, which is 38mm better than the Pershing, and only 8mm less than really what is the Centurion Mark 1 speciality. You'll be happy to know as well that the AP rounds only cost 380 per shell, which is a lot cheaper than the Centurions. And I'll just quickly mention that it's quite easy to make money in the STA1 as long as you don't fire those premium rounds. And really, you don't really need to when you've got 218mm of penetration. At least unless you are engaging some tier 9 heavies and tier 10 tanks. It has 1920 DPM, which is 11% better than the Centurion Mark 1. Now its accuracy is better than the Pershing, slightly worse than the Centurion, and the aim time is the same on all the tanks. Now all of these vehicles get a very impressive 10 degrees of gun depression, although you have to be careful because the STA1 only has 13 degrees of elevation, which can make it quite tricky to engage targets when you're downwards on slopes. So really what we found is that the STA1 is a lighter armored tank than the Pershing or the Centurion, with slightly better mobility and much better gun performance than the Pershing, and just different gun performance than the Centurion. So that's quite enough theory crafting, let's take a look at some gameplay. So here we go, we're playing on Swamp. I am playing with Floppy Waffle and with Freudian. So Swamp is quite a nice map for the STA1. Unfortunately for us, though, there are 3 artillery on the enemy team. If any of those artillery do hit us in the STA1, as we understood from the light armor profile, we will take massive amounts of damage. The enemy have got a couple of very decent players. Very cheeky scout down there, and a WZ-120, who is the only tier 9 tank on the enemy team. And boy, what a matchup that would be. You could be a WZ-120 only against tier 8. So I am taking the north, along with Floppy Waffle, who is playing in his Pershing. The idea is that we need to try and get some eyes on the enemy to be able to get our artillery firing before hopefully theirs catches us. So we can see the STA1 just make good use of its 45 km/h top speed limit. It's very nimble indeed. So we can see a couple of IS-3s against us. We miss our first shot. Now we're on a downslope here, so it's hopefully harder for the artillery to be able to hit us on a downslope. There we go. We put in a good shot. Could have gone into the turret ring there of the IS-3. And that's where having this... Whoop! One artillery shell just missed us. That's where having this 218 millimeters of penetration really comes in handy. Many tier 8 medium tanks. Oh gosh, that Lorraine very nearly got us as well. Thankfully the low splash radius on the Lorraine shell made it so he was unable to do any damage to us, even though he hit fairly near us. And artillery is still shooting for us. I think every artillery in the game is going for us right now. But it's because of our position. Because we're on a downslope, the artillery shells are just that little bit harder to hit us. And here we can see us making use of the 10 degrees of gun depression on the STA-1 to be able to keep harassing this IS-3. So you can use downward slopes like this to avoid shells from artillery, or at least lower the probability that they're actually going to hit you, which is quite important in lightly armored tanks such as the STA-1. So I was saying that that 218 millimeters of penetration is absolutely fantastic on the STA-1. Medium tanks such as the Pershing and the T-44 just don't really compete with that level of penetration. Here we can see a KV-4 in the open. We put one into the side of his turret. And right now our team is down by 2 tanks. We bounce. And I believe that was Floppy Waffle who set KV-4 on fire. Brilliant shot that was to take that tier 8 Soviet heavy tank out of the game. And so what we're doing here is just using our view range in the bushes. We've got 390 meters view range. And our camera rating isn't too bad in the STA-1. And hopefully we can just lock down this flank and start to spot for our team. And it looks like we might... it's probably that Super Pershing actually who spotted the STA-1. And unfortunately Floppy takes a 4. I do have 6th sense on this tank, which means that we haven't been spotted. And there's that 5916 that we mentioned earlier. He's decided it's his time to make a move. And I'm blind firing in that bush to see if I can get lucky and hit that STA-1 that we know was in the corner. So our other flank isn't doing too well. But Sangfreudian just put in a great shot into a Jagdpanther 2. So I decide that that position's pretty much stalemate, and oh my word, a GW Tiger just came out of nowhere. And along with the WZ wrecked that Super Pershing on that flank. So this game's looking a little ugly. So I decided to take matters into my own hand and play a little bit aggressively. We secure the kill on a dangerous little scout there. The enemies opened fire on us, which meant that they got spotted and taken out by our 2 tier 8 tank destroyers and Sangfreud on that flank. Now I'm going to go forwards to use this bush. Hopefully get some more spots. We know there's a Super Pershing up on that ridge line, and there's a Jagd Tiger 88 situated just southwest of him. So the STA-1 needs to be played like a true medium with regards to scouting, as well as putting out... It can put out the damage, but as well as putting out the damage, it is a true medium with regards to its mobility. And here we can see that the gun elevation problem there. I was literally on a part of the slope where I didn't have enough gun elevation. And there you go, I can't shoot the Super Pershing because of the gun elevation there. Luckily for us, actually let's just pause the video there just to show you. So if you're on that much of a downslope, you can't aim that far up, almost like maybe about 5-10 meters upwards. you've got to watch out for that. I had to go forwards until my tank was wedging up against this hill to be able to have the gun elevation to engage him. Luckily we put in a nice blind shot there. Now we're just trying to avoid the artillery. We're doing a bit of a moonwalk there off the wall. And what I want to do is get out of this position. I don't like being locked down. Oh, got to pull back. Nope, can't get out right now. Ah, T-69. Every man for himself. Let's get our bum against the wall before the artillery land a shell on us. So I'm going to use this bush again to see if I can spot. We can't. T-69 seems to be making a hero run. I'm more interested in re-engaging along the western flank. Oh, there's the WZ-120. We won't have the gun elevation to engage him until we are right up on the slope. So watch out for that. Also, something that I just realized that I failed to mention in the garage is that because of this big ass of the STA-1, you can't actually aim downwards over the back of the tank, a lot like a Comet. You don't have the same gun depression over the back as the front. You definitely need to watch out for that. And if you are engaging an STA-1 from behind, it's very effective because he's literally unable to shoot down upon you. So whenever I'm playing on Swamp, I do feel that the best way to attack from the north is along the west. They specifically put in some really nice defensive positions there that you can spot out from, and some nice bushes to be able to allow you to have the camo rating to avoid being spotted while still getting clean engagements on your opponents. I was going to think about going across to help out Sangfroid with the Jagdtiger 88, but he communicated with me at the time, I believe, that the Jagdtiger 88 was nearly dead. So I'm pinging the map here to let my team know that they should probably pre-aim, because it's likely that I'm going to spot some opponents. And again, just taking in the mobility here of the STA-1, you can see how good the track traverse is. I believe this would count as soft terrain. It might only actually count as medium. So the ability for it to traverse over the ground isn't too bad. So we fire one on the move there against the Borsig because I need to get into cover. We can stop here though, because he wasn't interested in shooting us for some reason. And Sangfroid sets him on fire. So that Borsig really got caught out at the wrong moment. And we got a bit lucky with our attack there that we timed it perfectly. Oh my word! Finding where all the artillery are hiding. Sangfroid puts in a good shot there. I bounce a shot from the WZ-120 by the looks of it. Let's take a look about where that one bounced off. Looks like it bounced off our... oh, the side of our armor there. Look at that. That was a good ricochet. And oh my word, another artillery. Not today, Mr. GW Panther, not today. And now take note of this position that I'm going to be showing you on Swamp. If you haven't used it before, I do fully recommend it. You see these bushes up here? You can sneak your way up into the bushes. And this provides you with excellent view range for the enemies that like to camp there, and also the enemies that like to camp in their base. So there is a full health T-34 there, and I'm kind of indicating that it might be time to come and help. So I put my mouse cursor over him, and I do the follow me command. He starts to move out. I mean, there's no point in me rushing here, really. Even though we are up by 4 tanks, 2 of those are artillery. One of them, Sangfroid, is very weak. And there we can see just how good this bush location is. I'm waiting for the artillery to shoot him. Okay. So what you saw me do there is I knew I had a clean shot on the guy, and if he was to pull back, I would still be able to get him. So I wanted to wait for my friends to shoot him. When I saw the first shell ping off him, I believe that was from Sangfreud, and I knew I could open fire. Now we've been spotted by the WZ-120. We want to lure him out. We fire one on the move, then we angle our armor, avoiding a shot. And what I want to do right now is close the distance, but I also want to lure him round the corner so he gets shot by my friends. We put one into him on the move, and interestingly, you see there we get shot in the side, and that damaged our fuel tanks. So watch out for getting shot in the side and getting set on fire in the STA1. So now we're against the tier 9 medium tank, and he may have all the alpha damage, but our rate of fire is strong as well. And the T-34 manages to confirm the kill just before I was able to. So GG all round. So this was kind of the complete tier 8 medium tank gameplay. You got to see the mobility of the STA1, you got to see the ridge work that it can do. As a medium tank, that it's sneaky and it can outplay its opponents, especially when you've got artillery on your team. And let's just take a quick look at the post-game stats. So that was a decisive victory in the STA1. We got 4,704 experience for our double, getting a high caliber medal, a patrol duty and a Confederate. As you can see, we did something to 13 out of 15 of the enemy players. And that's what you should try and do in your medium tanks, kind of be the jack of all trades. So that's 1568 base to get the master in the STA1, which was quite challenging in this tank. I had quite a few games where I got between 2000 and 2200, that's with a premium account, and only got first class mastery badge, which suggests that people are getting really good games with the STA1, or just not enough people have got to it yet. Anyway, we got 3 kills with 3575 damage. We fired a few blind shots, and a couple of them missed. Of the ones that we hit, 17 penetrated, giving us a very healthy amount of damage done. So we took 3 hits, of which 2 penetrated, although that was towards the end of the game where I knew that my health didn't really matter anymore. And now here's the nice thing, nearly 4,000 damage upon detection, giving us that patrol duty medal. And you can see just how far the STA1 is able to go, 3.82 kilometers, when it is given the room to do so. So let's move along and take a look at some more gameplay. So here we go, we're playing in the STA1 on El Halou. This is a rather nice matchup. Only tier 8 tanks, which make up half of the enemy team. So I'm going to rush into position in the STA1. I'm going all the way down to try and put pressure on the enemy who are below me. Damn you, color filters! Where is it? There we go. Apologies for that, guys. That would annoy me later on. So here we can see a KB3. Put a nice roll into him there, 270. And I don't believe we even got spotted. We're going to poke up again for a little bit more. Now we're going to use this rock to try and avoid fire. And when we think we're unspotted again, we're going to go and try and engage him. We can already hear the shells pinging in around us. And there's an Inden Panzer. And whoa, another KV-4. And it's really nice to have that 218 millimeters of penetration. And you know what? This is a rather nice start to the game. Now, tier 8 medium tanks don't have ultra high DPM. So if you're able to pull off 1,200 damage on tier 8 tanks that quickly, it's a great result. We could see there that we were able to fire pretty damn clutch against the VK3002D and putting a good shot against him. And you're just seeing just basically the kind of ridge work you need to be able to do in the STA1 if you want to use it effectively. You have to make use of that 10 degrees of gun depression and the fairly good rate of fire to keep the gun singing. So we're just looking for a kill here on that KB3. We blind fired. Bit of a waste though. All it achieved was us getting spotted by the enemy KV-4. And thankfully that T-44 manages to finish that KV-3 off. And here we see a Panther 2. We put one into him. He stops to aim at us. And I decide to fire one back at him. Ah, the shell misses. Oh, he manages to hit us again. Amazing. And oh, it's all going wrong now. It's all going wrong. KV-1 puts a good shot into us, killing our commander. We managed to put one back into him. So just to show you quickly where that shell penetrated, it didn't look like that Panther 2 had much of our tank. The first one was a clean shot into here. And that was because we were sticking a lot of our tank out. Next, we had all of our turret behind the rock. But it looks like we had just that tiny little bit of our lower plate out, probably angled like this. He was able to go right through it because it is, wow, it's so thin. And then the KV-4 was able to put one in right through the side of the turret. And bish bash bosh, just like that. We can see just how much of our health we lose so quickly. So we haven't been spotted here. These bushes can really provide you with a lot of cover. And I'm thinking this KV-4 is going to come out again, so I'm just going to aim at him. I have a blind fire thinking that maybe I didn't spot him. Looking back on that, I would have been able to spot him if he'd come out there. I think that was just a shot of opportunity, so to say. Now the STA-1, it has 50 rounds at the start of the battle. And that means that you can't throw them away. When you've got 50 rounds, if you fail to do damage with half of them, then you're only going to be able to do about 4,000 damage in the battle. So simply throwing your rounds around can be a bit foolish. But it's certainly not like a Type 59 with regards to how careful you have to be with its ammunition. So I'm in a bit of a precarious position here. But thankfully we're able to shoot our way out of trouble and get the kill on the guy that we wanted. Since they've remodeled El Haluf, I'm still, to be honest, I'm still trying to learn this map. I'm trying to learn the kind of positions that you can use to take your opponents out. Here we can see an IS-3. We managed to make a nice kill on him there. He was definitely one of the enemy team's most valuable players. So my guys are doing pretty damn well up in the northwest. I feel fairly confident that they're going to be able to hold that position. So I decide that I want to go back over here and put some pressure on the enemy team. So I'm aiming for the top of the KV-4. Oh, it bounces. So we're going to have a second go at him. And the ARL takes him out. But thankfully, I don't believe I took damage there, because he hit us in our mantlet and our spaced armor did the job. Now the Panzer has now decided to attack. Oh god. Looks like we must have hit his tracks. We're unable to penetrate him there even though we hit him. I really wish I'd penetrated that Panzer there, because in the position that he's in now, it's very hard to dig him out. But also an Panzer is, it's a tricky tank to deal with in the STA-1. And I was very happy there that an Su-100 was able to do 750 damage, I think, to that Panzer with one shot. What a fantastic result for us. Great shot by that guy. And that allows me to just break in across the flank, as you can see. Once you know that there's very little to stop you, advancing across this part of the map is a fantastic thing to do. Especially if the enemies do pull back here, it allows you to get some shots off. So I remember that Panther 2 is still lurking up there probably. And I guess I took a little bit of a risk with my play to come up here that the Panther 2 wouldn't just catch me. But I felt like we were in control of the game and I wanted to get a little bit more out of it. So we're just taking a look out for the Panther 2, who might be above us. I'm thinking he's up here. I'm thinking he's up here. And lo and behold, he's up here. Put a good shot into the back of his turret. Another one. Let's just take a quick look to see where he shot us there. Yep, right in the cupola, as you can see. Well, the ring on that MG. We managed to track him dead. That was a great shot. And goodbye, Mr. Jagdpanther 2, as we track him again. And this sucks for him. And that's where you can make use of your 10 degrees of gun depression to outplay your opponents. So next, you know what? I think I know where the AT-15 will be. There's only one position really on the map that I think an AT-15 will be. And there he is, and he was pre-aimed for me coming round the corner, but we've managed to get around him. He puts in a good shot into us. Thankfully, he's unable to put the second in, though. We aim for his tracks, and we detrack him. He repairs his tracks, but we've got the rate of fire to track him again. And now this is a satisfying moment. We've already done 727 damage to him, 982. Hey, look, it's like X marks the spot on the back of his tank. And a nice casual 1,197 damage there done to the AT-15. And really what I showed you is the flexibility of the STA-1 there. It's a true medium tank, and you can use it to outmaneuver your opponents in combat and outplay them with the gun depression. That 10 degrees allowed me to track a Panther 2 and nearly do the whole of his tank. And there's nothing that he could do about it. And then we outthought the AT-15 and then outshot him. To be able to basically take the entirety of his tank out with, I think, one shot of support from my friends. Now we're going to go after this T-32 with this lever. And I'm within the danger zone of dying. So we look for a shot. Oh no! Let's pull back as quickly as we can. I can see he might be aiming through the gap of the T-34. And the SU-100 puts in another kill, securing his second kill on a tank which is 2 tiers higher than him. So GG to that SU-100. So this was a fairly good example of STA-1 gameplay again. We used the mobility of the tank to take a strong position, spot from that position for our team, and use the flexibility and the firepower to shoot out from it. Later on, we used our knowledge of the map and our mobility to be able to secure some key kills on the opponent, and then flank around and use the flexibility of the STA-1 to basically take out 2 equal-tiered opponents from full health, only taking 1 shot from each. And this is the kind of gameplay that you can develop in this rather nice Tier 8 Japanese medium tank. So let's take a quick look at the post-game stats. So this was experienced during a 5 times event, but that's still nearly 2,500 experience with a premium account, securing a high caliber as well. So 4,585 damage, gave us 4 kills, and 1,665 base. We fired a few shots blind, but still hit 24 out of 29. And of those 24, 23 penetrated the target, giving us a rather nice 4,585 damage out of the 23 shells. So we took 6 hits, of which 5 penetrated, and we didn't have much health left at the end of the game. And that's kind of what you're going to have to get used to with the STA-1, that if you do get hit, unless it hit that mantlet, such as when you saw the KV-4 shoot that spaced armor on the front of the gun shield, you're going to be tanking with your health. And we're also able to do 1,581 spotting damage from that central position and 253 tracking damage, covering again over 2.5 kilometers. So if I'm not mistaken, I didn't fire 1 heat shell in either of those replays. And really, you don't need to in those kind of matchups in the STA-1. But if you really do need to penetrate Tier 9 and Tier 10 tanks frontally, then at least you do have the flexibility to do so. And that's something that really the T-44, the Pershing, and the T-34-2 are unable to do. They can't have such reliable penetration with their standard ammunition. While tanks such as the Panther 2 and the Object 416 are kind of in the middle of them, getting about 200 millimeters of penetration. And then you have the tanks which get similar levels of penetration, such as the Panzer, the STA-1, and the Centurion Mark 1. So I guess the STA-1 might have quite a nice little niche for players who want to play higher tiered medium tanks, but maybe don't want to have a premium account, as the ammunition on this tank is pretty cheap and you're going to make good money with it. All of these attributes have meant that I've had fairly good success in the STA-1, getting 67% wins and averaging 1055 experience. My average damage is remarkably similar than it is inside the Panzer and the Centurion Mark 1, as we can see there. But I do feel like I can play the tank better. I've only played 54 games in this vehicle, and I think that if I was to play a few more, I can do better in it. So, just to summarize quickly, the STA-1 is a refreshing change from the Chiri, and it really is a true Tier 8 medium tank. It has one of the better performing guns on any of the Tier 8 medium tanks, and really what you need to know is that this vehicle forgoes some of its armor to get a little bit more mobility than tanks such as the Centurion Mark 1. The gun has similar performance to, for example, the Panzer, but for me, the aim time on the Panzer of 2.9 means that I really don't want to play it. And having that 2.3 second aim time on the STA-1 means that even if I have to forego some of the armor, it's a much more enjoyable tank for me. Now, I personally don't jump up in the air and shout for joy whenever I play my Tier 8 medium tanks, because you'll know if you've watched my Comet video that the Tier 7 medium tanks have roughly the same and sometimes even better DPM than the Tier 8 ones. And it's not until you get to Tier 9 that the DPM starts to spike up again. And DPM for me is how fast I can shoot my way out of challenging situations, or how quickly I can kill an opponent before I need to escape. And so that's why for me, Tier 8 mediums are not really my kind of thing, when I'd rather play in a Tier 9 medium or rather play in a Tier 7 medium. But still, irrelevant of what I like, the STA-1 is still a very strong tank, and I do fully recommend it. And I'm getting dangerously close now to the Type 61, which I think is going to be a real beast. I can't wait to play it. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this tank review. If you did, please consider rating it down below. I'd really appreciate it. And let me know in the comments what you think about the STA-1. Do you love it? Do you hate it? How do you think it weighs up against the other Tier 8 medium tanks? Anyway, as always guys, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.